Good morning, learner. My name is Atrey Sinha, Academic Officer English, National Institute of Open Schooling. Today we are here to read the short story Snake Bite, written by Shankar Pillai, which is included in our secondary course English 202 as lesson number 1. So let's start the lesson. Before starting the lesson, we must know the learning outcomes that are expected from this lesson. First of all, after completing this lesson, we will learn how critically we should think about people's superstitions and blind faith in magical power. We can also realize the importance of timely and effective communication. Then we know how to identify regular and irregular verbs. Then we will learn to form adverbs from adjectives and use them properly in a sentence. And then we can frame requests and inquiries in our daily lives. Then we will know how to write a short descriptions of people. So let's read the story, and before that let's know about the story. As we have already said that the author of this short story Snake Bite is Shankar Pillai, and this story is anthologized in his short story collection named Life with Grandfather. And Life with Grandfather is a series of short stories narrated by a boy narrator. And that boy narrator is an adventurous little boy whose name is Raja, and he loved to meddle with creatures. Now move on to the story. At first we see the snake catching episode. So Raja, the boy narrator, had seen a small snake in the compound while he was roaming about the compound. Then at first the snake was crawling slowly, but as soon as it had seen Raja, it hurriedly hid in a coconut shell. Then what did Raja do? He is a very adventurous boy, as we all know. He closed the mouth of the shell with a stone. Now, can you guess why did the snake hide? Because it was afraid of the boy, and it was very natural, it was very obvious, right? Every living being is afraid of getting harm. Every creature tries to protect its own life till the end. The snake did the same. As we are afraid of snakes, snakes are also afraid of human beings. We might harm them as well, isn't so? So, what could be the reactions of the grandparents as they came to know that their loving grandson had done a victorious thing in a way? So, first the boy narrator went to his grandmother, and at first grandmother was shocked. And that was very natural, because she knew that snakes are very dangerous. So she was shocked. She cried for help, and then grandfather came running. And as he came, grandmother reported him what had happened. What had happened? That their grandson had captured a snake in a coconut shell. And as soon as grandfather learned that, what did grandfather do? Grandfather snatched the shell and threw it away as far as possible. So that was the reactions of grandmother and grandfathers after the incident. Then grandfather warned his grandson that snakes are very dangerous and he shouldn't go near to them. So grandfather now warning his grandson that he shouldn't disturb any animals. Now this is true that many snakes are poisonous, but that doesn't mean that every snake is poisonous. There are some snakes as well that are not poisonous at all. Now I am not encouraging you to disturb snakes or to play with snakes. Most of us couldn't identify which snake is harmful and which one is not. So to be on the safe side, it is better to avoid them. And it is the best not to disturb any animal, any creature, any living being, because number one, being a human being, we shouldn't entertain any sadist pleasure. Sadist pleasure means a pleasure that comes when we see somebody to suffer. So that is one thing. And another thing is that animal might not be poisonous but could attack us for self-defense if we disturb them, and that attack could harm us. And anyway, every living being has the same right to live in the nature with us, right? So we will move on to the gist of the first part. So we have seen that this story opens with an adventurous little boy whose name is Raja, and who lived with his grandparents, and he loved to meddle with creatures, be it wild animals or be it domestic animals. He loved to meddle with creatures. At first he caught a snake, and he victoriously joyously showcased that to his grandparents. And the grandparents rebuked him for that and tried to discourage him, tried to advise him that he must get rid of this habit. Now, were they successful in stopping him from mending with any creature? So this will be our concern, and we will surely look into that. Now comes the bee biting episode. This time our narrator is trying to catch a bee, not a snake, but trying to catch a bee, and as per the story, the bee episode is happening in the evening. Okay, so soon after that snake episode, this boy narrator now tried to catch a bee, and this time he gets stung on the finger and felt a very sharp pain. So this time in the bee episode, this boy had got stung on the finger and felt a very sharp pain. So it is evident that the result of rebuking and warning their loving grandson was all futile. Soon in the evening, the narrator chased a bee, and this time he got stung. Raja was very curious about creatures. Now his grandparents instructed him not to disturb a snake. They had not said not to disturb a bee, right? So there occurred some miscommunication, and what was that? Raja, as soon as Raja got stung by the bee, he ran to his grandmother and he told her that he had been bitten, and he wanted her to relieve him from pain. And if we minutely observe, Raja had not mentioned about the agent of that biting. He hadn't said that it was a bee who had bitten him. He just mentioned about the bitten and his pain. So he didn't mention that bee, and grandmother thought that he had been bitten by a snake, and that was very obvious. We couldn't blame her, because after a few hours ago, that little boy had showcased his victory that he had imprisoned a snake, and this time he had again come to her saying that he had been bitten. So it was very obvious for Raja's grandmother that she would think that this boy had been bitten by a snake. So she again got panicked, and she called out to grandfather and reported the same. Now I would like to read out that portion from the text to tell you how this miscommunication happens. It will clear our concept. So let's read that text. Later in the evening, I tried to catch a bee, and it stung me on my finger. I felt a sharp pain. I ran to grandmother and told her that I had been bitten and wanted her to do something to stop the pain. See, he hadn't mentioned the bee. Even he hadn't mentioned the snake as well, but it was very obvious thing that it is a snake, because a few hours ago it was happening with a snake. So grandmother thought that it was a snake that had bitten him. So grandmother thought that I had been bitten by a snake. She called out to grandfather, "Come and see what has happened to Raja." So came the superstitious grandfather. The grandfather came immediately as soon as grandmother called for him. So he heard everything that the grandmother had to report, and he also found a blue mark on Raja's finger. And then he almost grabbed Raja and started running. And where did he went? Where did he go? He went to a magic man. And remember, he went to a magic man and not to a doctor. Okay, that's why we had used that superstitious adjective with grandfather. Now we will come to the magic man. The magic man's appearance was described such that he was an old grey-haired man. He lived in a small house far away from the narrator's residence, and he was famous for curing snake bite. Now the magic cure episode comes. Raja, the boy narrator, had given here a detailed description of the steps of magic cure. What was that? At first, that magic man had took Raja inside his house. Then he looked at his finger and asked Raja to sit down and not to move. And Raja sat down on the lap of his grandfather. Then the magic man, the medicine man, the old man, took some water in a small brass vessel and sat in front of them. Then he started reciting some mantras. After a few minutes, he washed Raja's fingers and gave him some water to drink. Now I will like to read out this portion, and here you will get to know that there are some hints why we should call it superstition, and it is not why I am claiming that it is not at all scientific. And I would appreciate if you find the same with me, and I am very sure that you will find it. Let's read it together. An old grey-haired man came out of the house. He knew the cure for snake bite. Grandfather asked him to cure me. The old man took me inside. He looked at my finger and then asked me to sit down and not to move. I sat on grandfather's lap. The old man then took some water in a small brass vessel, sat in front of us and started reciting some mantras. I wanted to tell him that it was a bee and not a snake that had bitten me. So the narrator can identify that there is a miscommunication that took place. But grandfather held me tight and did not allow me to talk. Why? Because it was instructed by that magic man, the medicine man, and grandfather had blind faith on him. So he held the narrator tight and did not allow him to talk. Grandmother too had arrived by then, and some other people with her. They looked sad and silently watched me. So all these people, the villagers, the neighbors came at that spot because they all were concerned about Raja as with grandmother. And grandmother knew very well where the grandfather could go. So he followed him, and with her every other person came there. And by this time the pain in my finger had stopped. But still I had to sit there and get cured of snake bite. So you can get it. By this time the pain in my finger had stopped. Till now that magic man didn't do anything to cure Raja's pain. But by this time the pain in my finger had stopped. But still I had to sit there and get cured of snake bite. Notice that this snake bite is written in a single inverted comma. Why? Because it is a assumed snake bite. It was not real. Actually, it was a bee bite. But everyone came to the conclusion that it was a snake bite, and the treatment followed the same. That's why the writer written it in a single inverted comma. After a few minutes, the old man got up, washed my finger, and gave me some water to drink. So now that old man had given him something to drink. If we argue that this water is that medicine, but it was after that pain had vanished, right? So after a few minutes, the old man got up, washed my finger, and gave me some water to drink. He asked me to keep quiet for some more time. Then he turned to grandfather and said, "Thank God you bought Raja in time." So he was taking the credit. He is out of danger now. It was indeed a poisonous snake that bit him. Grandfather, grandmother, and all others thanked the old man for the magic cure. On returning home, grandfather sent him gifts. Why? Because he was in gratitude to him, to this old man, because he had cured his grandson. So he gave him some gifts. Now, was the boy bitten by a snake? No, it was a bee. But this man confidently announced that it was a poisonous snake. It was his technique to promote his fraud business, to give a message to the audience that he can cure even the bite of a poisonous snake. His fraud business inherently lies upon superstitious belief of the villagers. And these villagers had much faith on the magic power that any medical treatment, right? So they had trust on the supernatural power, and all these things conditioned their life to superstition. Raja's grandparents were also possessed the same. Otherwise, why did grandfather take Raja to the magic man and not to a doctor? And fraudulent, deceitful persons like this old man of the story expanded their livelihood on encouraging their superstitious perceiving. And Raja's finger had stopped hurting before the medicine man gave him any treatment. But Raja couldn't tell that anyone. The medicine man made the grandparents believe that it was he who had saved who had saved their loving grandson Raja. And Raja is safe only because of his treatment and mantras, nothing else. And that was why Raja's grandfather sent him gifts. He became gratitude to him. But only Raja knew, and also we, the reader, come to know that the old man was a liar and had fooled everybody, right? Now we will move on to the gist of the second part, what we had seen in this second part. So after that snake episode, after rebuking from his grandparents, this time this Raja, this little boy, had tried to catch a bee, and this time he got bitten by the bee. And due to a miscommunication, his grandparents assumed that it was a snake bite. And what did they do? His grandfather took him to a magic man for treatment, and he get relief long ago, but not allowed to tell anything. Why? Because he was instructed to keep quiet until the treatment comes to an end. So he was not allowed to tell anything, but he got relief long ago, before the treatment starts. Now the magic man took the full credit of curing this little boy from this pain, from this biting of that poisonous snake. And as a result, as in gratitude, grandfather sent him gifts. So what we have seen in this story, let's have a look at a glance. So this is a story of Raja, our narrator, who is a little boy and who is venturous. He loved to mend with any creatures, be it wild animals, be it domestic animal. So he loved to do that. And in the morning he caught a snake, and he was rebuked by his grandparents, and he got warning. He was advised to get rid of his habit. He was warned that snakes are poisonous, snakes are dangerous. He shouldn't be mend with them. He shouldn't disturb them. And he was not disturbed actually. He was actually caught a snake in a coconut shell. So he was much rebuked. But all those went into vain, because soon in the evening he tried to chase a bee, and this time this bee had bitten him. And then as soon as his grandparents come to know about this thing, that he was bitten by something, the thing is, he was bitten by something. Not it was not so mentioned that he was bitten by a bee, right? So as soon as grandparents come to know about that, they went to a magic man, and then the magic cure episode came, and he was treated by a magic cure. Okay, so this was what we have seen in our full story. And here comes one of the primary concerns of the story, that how far Indian society is submerged into superstitious belief. It is a story to warn us that our society is still carrying superstitions and blind faith in magical power, and we must check that. And this is not only fictitious. There are more fictions, there are numbers of fiction that is dealing with some superstitious belief that possessed by the villagers, and it is one of them. And this story is also telling us that still we are carrying that, and we must check it. The treatment Raja got was it right? Does this chants really work? What do you think? I would like to know that. Now, as a overall, so the narrator of the story is a little boy who is narrating an event that in his childhood, one day he had seen a small snake in the compound of their house, and the snake was crawling at first. It was moving very slowly, but as soon as it had seen the narrator, it hurried to hide in a coconut shell. And this is the proof of his adventurous nature. What did he do? He quietly captured the snake in that coconut shell. Then he took the shell and ran to his grandmother. Now grandmother became very cautioned. She knew that snakes are very dangerous. They are poisonous. So she was alarmed and repeated after Raja to confirm what she had heard. Snake. She did that, right? She was really scared. She cried for help from her husband, who came shortly and threw the shell away as far as possible. Then he warned Raja for what he did, advised him to get rid of his habit, and the snake fled and hid behind bushes so that none could disturb him again. Now, in the second part, we find that this boy is not such an obedient one. This time he chased a bee and got stung. He reported about his pain to his grandmother while not mentioning about the bee. As a result, grandmother thought that it was a snake that had bitten his grandson. She got panicked for the second time and called her husband again. Now she got panicked, called her husband, and did not. And when her husband, the grandfather, came there, he did not waste any more time. He took Raja to a magic man for treatment. Meantime, Raja identified the miscommunication, that these people are thinking that he got bitten by a snake, they didn't understand that he got bitten by a bee. He identified the miscommunication but was not allowed to rectify it as per order given by the magic man. Now, here the writer gives a detailed description of the whole incident. Finally, that old man very modestly took the full credit that he had cured Raja, but the pain was vanished already, and there was nothing on his part to cure Raja. But Raja's grandparents sent him gifts in gratitude. They think that this man had cured our grandson, so they did the same. So we will move on to our grammar portion, as the text portion has come to an end here. So we will surely move on to the grammar portion, where we see adjectives, regulars and irregular verbs and adverbs. But before that, let's have a short break. Thank you. करने, राहों को अलोकित करने,
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो,
संसाधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोट से युक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोट से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर। दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बांट,
कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने।
Welcome back, learners. We were reading the short story Snake Bite by Shankar Pillai, and it is a story of Raja, a little adventurous boy who is the narrator of the story as well and the protagonist also. Now he lived with his grandparents, and as he is very adventurous, he loved to mend with wild creatures and domestic creatures as well. So he loved to chase snakes and bees, and in one fine evening he got bitten by a bee. And then comes the main concern of this story, that is how Indian society is still submerged in the superstitious belief, right? So that was the story. We came to know that how Raja had gone through the superstitious treatment to cure his pain, but that pain was gone already. But anyway, he had to take that cure, that treatment silently. So the story was all about that. Now come to the grammar portion. In the grammar portion, we will see the adjectives, we will learn the adjectives, and we can differentiate regular verbs from the irregular verbs, and we will learn the adverbs and how to form adverbs from an adjectives. Okay, so let's start the grammar. Let's start with adjectives. There are three main characters in this story: Raja, grandparents, and magic man. right? Grandmother is also there, but if we can rank them, these three came to the first. Now, if we describe Raja, how was he? What type of character is he? He is a little boy. He is disobedient because he didn't pay heed to his grandparents' warning. He is obedient as well because he followed the instruction given by the magic man through his grandfather. So he was obedient at the same time, disobedient and obedient at the same time. He was innocent and he was obviously adventurous. Now, if we try to describe grandparents, how were they? They are caring, they are simple, because they didn't understand the trick of the magic man. They are affectionate, of course. They are superstitious because they went to the magic man. They go for a magic treatment and not to a scientific treatment, right? So they are superstitious. They are obviously concerned about the well-being of their grandson. So they are concerned. Grandmother was obviously nervous because he got panicked very soon, and the grandfather is very active, right? As soon as he heard about the snake catching episode, what did he do? He snatched the shell and threw it away. And when he learned about the bee biting, not the bee biting, I shouldn't say bee biting, but as soon as he learned about the biting, what did he do? He grabbed the little boy and went for treatment. So he was very active. And now came the magic man. He is very clever. He is a fraud. He is pretender. And as it is described in the story, he is very old. So these are the adjectives, because all these words are describing the nouns. And what are those nouns? Raja. It is a name, so it is a noun. Grandparents, magic man, all these are nouns. And these words, little, disobedient, caring, simple, clever, fraud, these all are the words that describe the concerned nouns. So these are adjectives. And what are adjectives? Adjectives are those words that describe a noun. So we come to know about the adjectives. Now let's move on to the regular and irregular verbs. Let's read some lines, some sentences first. She called out to grandfather. Then he shouted for the man who lived there. He asked me to keep quiet. Notice the underlined words: called, shouted and asked. Can you tell me what are the parts of speech of these underlined words? Yes, these are verbs. And these verbs are denoting some events that had happened in the past, right? And how do we come to know that all these things are happened in the past? Because these verbs are in the past tense. Called, shouted, asked. The main verbs are call. From there it is whose past tense is called. Shout, the main verb, the present tense is shout, and the past tense would be the shouted. And ask in present tense turns into past tense as asked, right? So these verbs, these call, shout, ask, these verbs are turned to called, shouted and asked in the past tense. So these are regular verbs. So in regular verbs, the present form of the sentence be added with an ed or an d and turned to past tense. So this type of verbs are called regular verbs. And what are irregular verbs? Let's read some more sentences. I took the shell and ran to grandmother. Look, grandma, I caught a snake. I mistakenly put salt instead of sugar in your tea yesterday. So notice these words: took, caught and put. Took. Took is the past tense of which word? Take. Take is the main verb and took is the past form of that verb take. So while we are making the past tense, then what we are doing? We are changing the spelling itself. Take and took. It is not like T-A-K-E-D, taked. It is took. And same with the caught. Catch is the main verb. Catch is the present tense. And we are making caught as the past tense. The spelling is changed. And in the third line, I mistakenly put salt instead of sugar in your tea yesterday. So it was happened yesterday. So it was in past tense. And put is a kind of verb which is same in all the times. It is present tense. In present tense it is put. In past tense as well it is also put. So here there is no change and it is not at all putted, right? P-U-T-T-E-D. So when we are making the past tense by changing the spelling or not at all changing it anything, at that time we will call those type of verbs as irregular verbs. So what are the differences between regular verbs and irregular verbs? In regular verbs, we are adding a ed or a d with the present form of the verbs. And in irregular verbs, we are not doing such anything. We are changing the spelling or we are making no change. Okay. So these are regular verbs and irregular verbs. I think these are all most clear. Now we will move on to the adverbs. First read the first two sentences. Rima reads the newspaper. Rima reads the newspaper silently. I am repeating again. Rima reads the newspaper. Rima reads the newspaper silently. In the first sentence it is saying that Rima is reading a newspaper. And in the second sentence, it is saying that Rima is reading a newspaper silently. First sentence is telling only about the work, about the doing, that a girl named Rima is reading a newspaper, nothing else. But in the second sentence, it is described how Rima is reading it. Is she reading aloud? No, she is reading it silently. So the word silently is denoting how she does his work, how she does her work. Her work is reading a newspaper. And how does she read it? She reads it silently. So this word silently is describing the verb, describing the reading. This reads is the verb of this sentence. So the silently word is describing the verb that is read. So the words that describe the verb, we will call them adverbs. What are the differences between adjective and adverb? Adjective is describing the noun or a pronoun, but adverbs are describing the verbs. Okay, so here the silently word is describing the reading, not Rima, not the noun. Right? So this silently word is adverb. Same with the next sentence. Madhav speaks loudly. How does Madhav speak? He speaks loudly. Preeti dressed up beautifully. How did Preeti dressed up? She dressed up beautifully. Rahima walks fast. How does Rahima walks? Rahima walks fast. So this silently, loudly, beautifully, fast, all these sentences are describing the verb of the sentence, and thus these words are adverbs. Now you can easily come to the conclusion that adverbs are always ended with ly. But if you look at the last sentence, Rahima walks fast, I have not written that Rahima walks fastly. Fastly is not a word. The word is fast. So it is not necessary that adverbs always comes to an end with an ly sound. It may be no ly sound could be there. So fast is also an adverb, just like silently, loudly, beautifully. We have to just look into that whether it is describing a verb or not, nothing else. Okay. Now we will look how an adverb can be formed out of an adjective. Adjective, I have already discussed the difference between an adjective and adverbs. What is that? Adjective describes a noun or pronoun and adverb describes the verb. So quiet QUIT, it is an adjective, and we are making an adverbs by adding an ly from that. So quiet turns to quietly, similar turns to similarly, careful carefully, beautiful beautifully. The words that are in the left hand side are the adjectives, and by adding an ly sound we are making it an adverb. So the words that are in the right hand side are the adverbs. So the conclusion is that adjective plus ly is an adverb. So this is how we can make adverbs from an adjective, and we can also remember that it is not all, it doesn't follow in every words like fast. Okay, so these are the some points to remember. Now we will move on to let us talk portion. While how you can request someone to do something for us, we can use this sentence. Could you shut the door for me, please? Would you mind passing the paper, please? Can you suggest a movie I could watch over the weekend? So these are the sentences where I am requesting someone to do something for me, to shut the door for me, to pass a paper for me, and to suggest a movie for me. So here I am requesting someone to do something for me. This is how can we form a requesting sentence. We can start it with could, either with could or with would, or we can. There are some other sentences, you can come to know about that gradually. Then how could we ask someone for permission to do something? Can I use your computer, please? May I have a cup of tea? Do you mind if I turn on the fan? So these all are permission, these all are asking permission type of sentences. First, in the first sentence, I am asking permission to turn on the computer. Then I am asking for a cup of tea. Then I am asking for to turn on the fan. So in these sentences, by starting those sentences, by starting those questions with can, may, and do, I am framing the questions that could denote that I am asking someone for some permission. All right. So this is the let us talk portion. Now move on to the let us write portion. Here we will learn how to describe an event or an person. So imagine that you have come across a man anywhere, maybe in a park, maybe in a bus stop, and you are noting some points about that person. How was that? The age of that person is he is old. Physical feature: tall, stout, grey hair, white beard. Dress: long white robe and skull cap. Behavior: polite and gentle. And special points: wise and intelligent. So all these are in written, all these are in word form, right? I am here just jotting down the points. Now we have to turn it into a describing sentences. How could we do that? We can start with something like that. Your opinion, your writing might be something different, but it is an kind of example, nothing else. You shouldn't follow it blindly. Just like grandfather had blindly followed that magic man, you shouldn't follow, at least for this section. So we can write it like that. Today I met an old man. He was tall, stout, grey-haired, and had a white beard. He wore a long white robe and a skull cap. He was very gentle and polite. He looked quite wise and intelligent, right? So here I am covering all the points that I have written on the left hand side, right? I have described that man is old. I have described his physical feature, his dress, his behavior, and also include his special points as well, right? So these are the example. How could we write about the could we write a description, be it a person, be it any incident or anything else. So and all these things would be with the help of adjective and adverb. Okay, and we have to keep in our mind the regular and irregular verb as well. We couldn't write taked, we couldn't write putted, something like that. Okay, so this is how the lesson ends. So we are reading about the story about a very little adventurous little boy whose name is Raja, and then about his caring grandparents, and then about a clever magic man who is very easily to credit of everything. Then we come to know about adjective and adverb, how could we use them while describing anything, while describing a person or while describing an event. Then we come to know about regular and irregular verb as well, and then how could we request or how could we ask someone for something. So that's it for this for today's lesson. We will again meet with a new lesson on the next day. Till then, if you have any queries, please feel free to ask me. Thank you.
प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने,
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना